I'm over here working on our 76 Mercedes-Benz W114. Now, this is a collector car. A lot of people are looking at this saying it's a junker. It's not. But besides all that, we're working on restoring the car, and we came across a situation that is usually found normally when you're restoring an old car.
Welcome to D.I.Y. Automotive School with my friend Pete and Minnie, the body shop girl. It's everything you need to know about cars and more.
So just to give some back history on the car we're talking about here, this is a 76 Mercedes-Benz two-door hardtop. This was a rotisserie restoration, and when I say that, it was put on a rotisserie, complete floor plans were replaced, rocker panels, major rust repair. Go back into my videos and check it out and look. We went ahead and changed out the complete front clip on this, and you can see that in the video set of this vehicle. You'll find the links down in the description of this video. So what we did is we put European style bumpers and fenders and hoods and core supports on this vehicle. A lot of people don't realize that there's two different types of Mercedes-Benz. There's actually 3 or 4, but we're going to just talk about the 2 because we live in America. You got an American version and you got a German version. The German version has different headlights. It has no markers on it. The bumpers are totally different. The radiator is smaller. The grill is a smaller grill. And other imperfections, or should I say situations, can be found that will differ from the American car. So this is a European style car. But when we started out, it was an American car. The owner had purchased a parts car, which was a European car, and he wanted to change it to European style, so that's what we did. So when we changed the front end, and when I say front end, I'm talking even the inner fenders, all right, complete full front end apron has been replaced on this. When we mounted our fenders, they fit the same, but we ran into a situation over here on our doors. And what we ran into is, if you look right here, because these fenders only bolt on one way. I'm going to go ahead and explain that to you now. These are not adjustable fenders. You cannot move them back and forth, up and down, all that. They bolt on one way. That's it. This is how they fit. And if anything has to be done, you have to modify it yourself, which what we are in the middle of doing right here. You can see the body line, and then it comes down, it gets a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller, and then when we get down to the bottom here, you see how close it is to the door. Now, I've already done some work to this. I'm going to go ahead and explain what I've done once we get going here. But I was going to do this a totally different way, and I decided to not take the door off yet. And when I say that, I was going to go ahead and take the door off, and I was going to trim the fender to fit. I was going to go ahead and trim that fender to fit onto the vehicle, and then mount the door back on, and then get my body line the way that I want it. Now, if you look over on this end, the door is hanging properly. You can tell because all the body lines line up, and we got a nice even gap. But once again, when we get to this fender over here, we got a different story. Now, you're going to get different gaps and thicknesses of wideness of the gauge of the fenders on every vehicle that you work on. We're not going to sit here and meticulously make every single gap 1/8 all the way around. I'm not getting paid to do that. That takes a long time to do that. It's a meticulous job to do that. And the owner is not looking to have this car done in that fashion. When we got to this door right here, and you can see I've already started the body work, we found that the fender was way too close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to clean this up and to fix it properly. And you can see down here, the gap is really, really close right here. So what I'm going to do to go ahead and get me a nice even gap on that, I'm going to take my air grinder cutting wheel. And then what I'll do is while the door is shut, all right, I'm going to run my grinder down here and I'm going to clean that gap up. Now I'm going to stay as Steven as possible, and I'm going to go back and forth until my cutoff wheel fits inside here. Okay, just like that. All right, so what I've done is I've actually created a wider gap by using my cutoff wheel. And the reason that I used this cutoff wheel versus a 4.5-inch electric grinder cutoff wheel is because the electric grinder wheel is a little bit thicker, and also you don't have as much control with the electric grinder as you do with the the variable speed air grinder. So now what I'll do is I will take the door off of the car. And I can also see that the gap right in this area right here is just a little bit close. So what I'm going to do is when I take this door off, I'll go ahead and clean this edge up. I'm going to leave this tape right here, all right, because that's the tape that I initially was going to just take it off one side, but I went ahead and decided to do both the door and the fender. I went ahead and decided to do both the door and the fender, and what that's going to do for me, that will give me that creates a nice even gap instead of having the fender at an angle like a crooked cut while the door stays straight. And then of course, this procedure, just to let you know, is going to take approximately 6 to 7, 8 hours to repair properly. I'll have to take the door off. I got to spot weld all of the lip because that's a rolled lip on the fender and on the door. So those rolled lips, they are now gone. I will have to spot weld that. I'll have to grind those down. I'll have to reinstall the door, not once, twice, 3 times, probably 4 or 5 times to make sure that that gap is proper. And then by the time I get done doing all that, hopefully we're going to have a nice, beautiful situation here where everything looks proper and factory original. You can already see that the gap itself is already starting to look really, really nice. just by using my cutting wheel to create an even gap in between the door and the fender. A lot of people, what they would do, they would only take off this edge right here, and they wouldn't do anything to the door. But by doing it the way that I did it, will give it the illusion that it was made that way from the factory instead of having an angle cut. That's right, it would be an angle, all right, because we would be removing just the fender only and not the door, so it would look oddball. That's how you do it. That's the way that you create an even gap when one gap is too close at the bottom and too far away at the top. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and remove my door. We're going to go ahead and clean this area up right here. I just got to take a little bit off, and I don't think I'm going to take any off the door on this. I might clean it up, just kind of brush it with my Rolo lock grinder, but I'm going to remove some of this right here so this will all flow in and it will look normal. As you can see now, when I open my door, we have just a very, very little bit catching in this area right in here. Before, when I opened the door, it was hitting this whole fender. Let me go ahead, I'm going to take my cutoff wheel, I'm going to run it through here one more time in this area, then I'll go ahead and check to make sure that we are clear, and then once I do that, I'm going to remove my door, and then we're going to look at it with the door off of the vehicle. All right, we got the door off of the vehicle. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at what we're looking at here and what we're working with. So if we look at that edge right there, you can see where I hit it with my cutoff wheel. And in this section right here, I want you to pay real close attention. You can see where the lip, all right, I took so much off that the lip has cut through. Now up here, it's not as bad. We still got the roll, all right? There's actually, this lip actually rolls around onto this piece right here, but we busted through down here, and this is where it was really in bad shape. It was hitting right in there. And then if we look at the edge of our door, here is a good example of what we're talking about. You can see the lip right here, how the door skin rolls over, and it's the same way on that fender. You can see where we busted through the lip right here, and then we barely touched the door right here. So we took more off of the fender than we did on the door, but down in this area right in here, we took even amounts of, what can we say, metal off each item, including the door and the fender. So what I got right here is my Rolo Lock 3-inch grinder with a 36 grit pad. Now this is a variable speed tool. That means that you can control it just by the trigger. See what I'm saying? So what we're going to do is we're going to clean this edge up, and I'm going to go ahead and take just a little bit more off of here, but I don't want to take a lot. And then remember this edge right in here where I told you I wanted to roll it over because it was really close, and that way when we take our lip from up on top here and around, what it's going to do is it's all going to blend in. So I'm going to start down here, and then I'll work my way up. And then once again, the reason I got this tape, I want to take some of this lip off right here. And when I do this, I'm not going to go past the tape. I think doing that is really going to make a big difference for us right there. Now in turn, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on this edge right here, but I'm not going to hit this edge right here. I'm just going to stop it in this area. All right, now that we got our edge smoothed out, ground down with our 36 grit Rolo Lock, the next thing I want to do is I want to take my welder and I'm going to go ahead and spot weld all this back together. And if you look real close, you can see what we're talking about here. Once again, I'm just showing you this again. You can see that that's busted off. All right, and we actually have a repair under here. Somebody at some time replaced piece of metal in this area, and they brazed it together. So this here is actually brazed very, very strong, and I believe that's why this is right here, now that we're following our roadmap, is that when they replaced this metal, they actually replaced it by rolling the lip over. So this much of this door has been replaced all the way around. And then on the fender, you can basically see we need to repeat our process on this lip right here. Alright, to weld this up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my MIG welder, and I'm also going to use 021 wire. I'm not using 32 or 30 gauge wire. I got my welder set on low settings because I don't want to burn this edge and melt it. All I want to do is spot weld all this back together. Alright, now that we've welded that up, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our Rolo-Lock grinder, and then we'll clean all this up. And we'll also at the same time, hold on a minute, looks like I missed some right there. Hang on 1 second. Okay, we got it. So what I'll do now is I'll take my Rolo-Lock grinder, I'm going to grind this edge flat again, and then I'm also going to round it off to mold it back to the original authentic look. Alright, we'll go ahead and turn our door over, and then we're going to go ahead and clean this edge off as well up on top here. And you can see what we're talking about right here. When we welded that, what happened is we got a bunch of slag on the front side of the door. Now that we clean that edge off, to ensure that we got a nice straight edge, we're going to go ahead and take our tape and we're going to run it right down our body line, just like that. And I can see right in here, it's sticking out just a little bit. All right, the door is now done. We'll go ahead and clean it right here. All right, this edge is back to factory original, what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and repeat my process on the fender itself, and then I'm going to hang the door, and then we're going to see what all this looks like. Well, it's been approximately 2 weeks, 3 weeks since we have been working on our Mercedes-Benz. You can see that it is on the ground, and we've actually been working on the Camaro, trying to get all the body work done on that. So I went ahead and I put the door back on. I roughed in. Now the body work is only roughed in this area, because when you do the body work on the door off the car and you got body damage in a door jamb area right here where the fender meets, you're not going to get it perfect. So I'll have to go back over that to final finesse it. But I want to show you the gap, and you can see the gap looks really, really nice. I'm happy with it. It came out good. I think from my investigations and working on this door, I'm thinking that the damage was caused right in here. Somebody had cut that whole corner section out and had replaced it, because the door was hitting in this area right there. That's where the door was hitting. And I think from replacing that metal section and rolling that lip around, remember when we looked at the video we were watching and I showed you where that lip was rolled around, it showed all the brazing rod. Somebody had extremely fixed that door and didn't do a good job at it, or did the best job they could. And then by the time we replaced fenders and all that, it started hitting and rubbing. So I'm happy with it. The door came out great. It needs a little bit of adjustment still. We're not done with it, but if you look at the gap over here, you can see that the gap is pretty much right on the money and almost identically the same. So that's how you fix gaps on doors when they're too tight and gaps are rubbing and you want gaps to be proper. That's the way that you do it. You take your cutoff wheel and you take your grinders and you take your welders and you get after it and you get her done. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete, showing you and telling you that it is possible to do what you want to do in life if you take the time to do it. Don't ever let anybody tell you it's impossible. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do it, and don't ever let anybody tell you that it's not fixable. Everything is fixable in life, from a water leak on your faucet to a flat tire or a blown up engine, from a depressive day to a death in your family. It's going to get better. It will get better, I promise you. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete, working on the Mercedes, showing you how to fix stuff, giving you a lesson that if you drive yourself to doing something, it's possible to do it. Because if you're not doing it right, you definitely ain't doing it at all.
Thanks for watching D.I.Y. Automotive School. Classes don't stop till you know everything.